is when friends join hands, God, that your message is already preached. Relationship is what you desire us to be in. Relationship is what we seek. Show us the way in this next few minutes to stronger, fuller relationship. In your Son's name we pray. In 1983, Hollywood released a little getaway film that maybe a few of you saw called Risky Business. Yeah, you see that one? It involves privileged parents leaving an immature 19-year-old son, played by a little actor that a few of you may have heard of later by the name of Tom Cruise, at home in charge of their assets. He knows what he's not supposed to touch. Nevertheless, while they are away, the boy raids his parents' liquor cabinet and invites a lady of the evening into his parents' home. After a night together and the woman leaves, the boy discovers that the woman has stolen his mother's prize Fabergé egg. So what does the boy do? He jumps into his father's prize Porsche and recklessly drives it up and down the street looking for the woman. Gets kicked out of an honors program at school because he wasn't there to take the test, jeopardizes his chance of getting into Princeton, thinks he struck some kind of deal with her pimp, but only succeeds in getting all the furniture stolen out of his parents' house, on, and it's a comedy. Because the boy has engaged in risky behavior, in desperation, he comes up with an equally chancy, dicey plan to save his hide before his parents come home. And he jumps into risky business with both feet. The young man devises the most outrageous schemes, turns his parents' home into something I can't even say in church, and because it's a movie, manages to solve almost everything just as his parents are walking in the door. The Princeton interviewers show up right at the zenith of the biggest part of his hair-raising scheme to get the money back to pay for everything he's done. And it turns out, because you think the movie can't get any better, far from not wanting him to come to Princeton, because he's thinking outside of the box, the Princeton interviewers think, that's just the kind of person we want to come to Princeton. Some might say that the film Risky Business, which has a lot in common with another film about coming of age called The Graduate, is really a morality-free play about a bunch of self-absorbed kids who will stop at nothing to have their way. The clean-cut good looks of the actors give the rather dark subject matter of the film a veneer of charm. But there is no doubt that the overriding lesson in this 80s film is that to win, to really, really win, you can't sit around. You have to get out and go. You have to be willing to risk it all. In our scripture today, far from being the privileged children of wealthy parents, the three individuals in the Bible story Joan read for us were slaves. Not slaves in the American sense of slaves being regarded and treated as subhuman, but slaves in the sense that their sense of well-being and security totally rose and fell on the fortune of their master. The book of Exodus shows us that during this time, if the master had no children, his estate, his entire fortune, would be left to whom?
Slaves.
His slaves. As you have heard in the reading today, far from being told what not to touch, the first slave was entrusted with 5 talents, the second slave with 2 talents, and the third slave with 1 talent. Now, as you probably know, this biblical word talent does not mean the ability to sing or tell jokes. In ancient times, the word talent is translated from the Greek word talentos, which is a measure of money. So, one talentos, or talent, was roughly 15 years' salary. Therefore, 5 talentos was 75 years' wages. 2 talentos was then 30 years' wages. The master said, I'm going away for a time. I am entrusting you, which means making you stewards over a huge amount of money according to your ability. Now, to be a steward does not mean to just guard something. To be a steward means to improve on that which you have charge of. As I said to the 5 o'clock service last night, parents are stewards of their children. Their job is to take their cute, cuddly, drooling little babies and nurture them into contributing, active, vital members of society. To the extent that parents do that, that is good stewardship. You and I are stewards of the earth. You've talked about it in your prayer concerns and here. It is our responsibility to enjoy the earth, but to also love it and tend it and continue to make it a safe place for other creatures to live. Keep it safe, keep it clean, protect it from moving towards danger to us all, known as global warming. As we recycle, use less plastic, use products not loaded with chemicals, invest in solar panels, conserve water, monitor emissions, and try to keep people from fighting and killing each other, and on and on. We are good stewards. Would someone please turn off the heat? The 5th Sunday in this month of November is not only the first Sunday of Advent, it is White Sunday here at Little White Chapel. That does not mean, as I'm fond of saying, that only white people can come. What it means is we bring our white paper towels and our white bathroom tissue, our white copy paper, and all of those white products as part of our attempts to defray the cost of running this big building and continue our attempts to be good stewards. So, in our story today, each slave is called upon to take care of or steward vast sums of money according to their ability. Perhaps Paul was thinking about human ability when in 1 Corinthians he preached, God is faithful. God will not put more on you than you can bear. In any case, as we are called to steward children, as we are called to steward the earth, make them better. The 3 slaves were called to steward the master's money. They were called to leave it better than they received it. The evangelist Matthew, who was writing the story, was a Christian, but he also longed to remain a loyal Jew. The evangelist Matthew hoped that Christ's followers never would have to leave their Jewish traditions. Earlier in the 10th chapter, when Matthew records Jesus as saying, "For I have come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law," Matthew is probably hoping against hope. Oh Lord, please. That doesn't mean that some of us will have to stop following Jewish custom. We will have to stop being Jews. Can't we be Christians and still be Jews? So, in last week's story where the wise virgins refused to share with the foolish virgins, and so the foolish virgins were denied entry into the wedding feast, and in this story where 2 slaves engaged in bold or risky but ultimately successful investment behavior and so gained the right to have more responsibility, and one slave who was not a dishonest man, the one who was given the least amount of money, hid the money in fear and so ended up being cast into outer darkness. Is Matthew struggling with the new Christianity from a Hebraic perspective, saying there is an expiration date on God's mercy? Some scholars of the Gospel of Matthew argue that Matthew makes it clear that in his Judeo-Christian understanding of the second coming of God, there is no place for mistakes, and there is a price to pay for bad judgment. Is Matthew saying that since the master assigned the number of talents according to the slave's ability, and later says, to those who have shall more be added? There's a song in there someplace that Billie Holiday used to sing. Is Matthew saying that the real sin of the slave given the one talent is that he didn't trust God enough to work harder? And that would presuppose also that God also somehow determines how gifted we would be in today's world, or how challenged we will be, or even what misfortunes may befall us. Is Matthew saying we don't have free will? We don't have real potential? We don't really have any ability to grow? No room for hopes and fears? As you said this morning, Alva, what about blessed are the meek? How do we all keep from being thrown into outer darkness? Or maybe in these two stories, the master and the bridegroom, maybe Matthew was painting a picture of the largely unforgiving nature of the economy of the first century.